So I'm doing something a little bit different in this video. Instead of showing you 5 one-shot Claude Design demos, I'm going to use it to rebuild real parts of my actual business, live on screen in about 30 minutes. So I run the Agentic Academy on School, and for a while now I've been looking at our setup thinking our design is okay, but it's not really us. So I'll be the first to admit that we don't have a proper design system. We don't have our own landing page. Our command center, which is a Kanban style UI we've built for managing our agentic operating system, doesn't have a mobile version yet. We don't have a standard sales deck or set of slides to produce consistent assets. So rather than just talk about Claude Design, I'm going to use it to fix all of these in this video and talk about whether to use Claude Design directly or use Claude Code with specific skills for certain things instead. And I've done a ton of research going into this. So Peter Yang from the Creator Economy posted a really good walkthrough. Ryan Mather from Anthropic posted a thread full of tips for Claude Design. And the AI Daily Brief did a full breakdown of where to dig deep and where to steer clear. And Reddit's already moaning that every single Claude Design output looks identical. So as we build, I'll show you how to avoid that trap and how to actually get real business value out of this tool. So if you're trying to figure out whether Claude Design is actually worth your time and what other tools to combine it with to get the best out of it, then this is the video. Let's jump straight in. So before we go ahead and build anything, we need to understand a few things, because if you're opening Claude Design thinking that it's going to replace Canva for you or replace Figma because it's tanking the Figma stock, then you're probably going to use it wrong and get frustrated within a few minutes. But here's what it actually is. Everything Claude Design makes is code under the hood. So it sounds quite technical, but stay with me because it matters for how you actually use it and the way that you interact with it. So Peter Yang put it really well. Videos, slides, websites, apps, animations, they are all effectively just code under the hood. And because code is cheap, Anthropic can use all their powerful models to generate any of them with the same AI. So Claude Code for your backend, Claude Design for your visuals, it's the same engine, it's just a different output on the surface. But what that means for you as a business owner is pretty simple. This is not a canvas tool, a drag and drop, move the rectangle tool like Figma. It's much closer to how you would use Claude Desktop or Claude Code. So you prompt it, it builds, you iterate. You're not going to be dragging things around, but you are able to use some special tools that they've implemented to target certain things to change. And the AI Daily Brief had a really useful framing on this as well, which I've taken for this video. So they split design tools into two camps: asset design and system design. So asset design is stuff like a single post, a flyer, one image, and if you've used Canva before, it's probably for this asset design stuff. Then system design, on the other hand, is stuff like a website, a full app, a front end with a consistent look across all the screens, and that is where Figma lives. And that is closest to where Claude Design lives to. So Claude Design doesn't work in the same way as Figma at all. And Ryan Mather from Anthropic's design team said it directly. Stop thinking of Claude Design as a traditional canvas tool like Figma. It's closer to Claude Code than a pixel editor, which then means the same principles from Claude Code apply. So you give it good context, you let it take some actions, and then you iterate on those actions. So you're basically having a conversation, even if that conversation is with a specific element that you see on the page, which, by the way, is the recommended way to interact with it. And the other thing that's really important to understand up front is the 90-10 rule that Peter Yang kept coming back to in his demo. So AI is going to get you 90% of the way there, but the last 10%, the custom microcopy, the exact icon you need or logos, the bit of human taste, that definitely still needs you from what I've tried out. So if you go in thinking Claude Design will ship your final product, you will be disappointed. But if you go in thinking it will get you from 0 to 90% in a few minutes, then you're actually going to be blown away. Now, there's one thing that matters more than anything else in this tool. And if you skip this step, everything else you produce is going to look like AI slop. So let's talk about that. And it's quite clear in the community that a lot of people are skipping this step because Reddit has been going absolutely nuts for the design results from Claude, saying everyone thinks Claude Design has one look and this is it. The top comments are roasting the tool for producing this same generic AI slop dashboard for every single user. Get ready to see that serif font, those colored accent bars, and the infamous blinking green dot everywhere. Some even think OP's original design was better. Okay, so here is the single biggest difference between your Claude Design output looking like AI slop or another Anthropic website versus actually looking like your own brand, one that looks like you paid a lot of money for it. And that single biggest difference is actually dedicating time to the design system up front. And one of the main reasons that every single design looks the same and looks like AI slop is because in the background of Claude.ai/design, it's quite obviously using Claude Code or Anthropic's built-in front-end design skill. And the irony is actually it says generates distinctive production-grade front-end interfaces that avoid generic AI aesthetics. But if there's enough of them being produced, they become the generic AI aesthetic. And that seems to have happened with all these one-shot prompt landing pages that are being built out. And that's because it just has a default presets it falls back to when you give it a loose prompt. So when you're giving it that loose prompt with no design specifications, it's going to fall back to those defaults. Even Anthropic's own prompting documentation now mentions this. It says Claude Opus 4.7 has a consistent default house style with warm cream and off-white backgrounds. So it's literally baked in to the way that Claude Design works. So Ryan Mathers' number one tip is this: spend that first hour in Claude Design, maybe two, setting up your full design system and your key reference screens. So it's going to feel painful at the start, but it's going to pay off tenfold when you actually see the designs at the end. Now, just a quick warning before we actually start building this out, setting up your design system is probably going to burn through more tokens than almost anything else you do inside Claude Design. So a couple of quick rules to protect your quota. Firstly, do your design system setup in a single focus session, not spread across multiple sessions. And only do this if you're actually committed to using Claude Design and not just having fun and poking around. And when we get past the design system phase, back to creating actual screens, you can use regular Claude for the copy and the structure rather than using Claude Design, but we'll come to that. So let me show you how we're going to set this up for the Agentic Academy on School. And what we're going to tackle first is basically a landing page. So right now we live inside School, which is great for the community experience, but we don't have a proper external landing page where people can see more information about what we offer. So something that sells the vision, shows what's inside, and converts visitors into members. Now we are actually running some ads which link back to a mock landing page, but you can see they're pretty non-branded, pretty generic, and not really representative of our brand, not even following the color schemes we're using on School. So before we go into Claude Design and actually start setting up a design system, I just wanted to flag one important thing, which is inside Claude Design, it's a separate app from your Claude desktop app, and it's a separate app from Claude Code when you're hosting it in VS Code, for example. And what that means is that it doesn't actually come with inbuilt custom skills. So you might have your own front-end design skills or UI design skills, but none of those are supported at the moment inside Claude Design. I'm sure they will be in the future, but what that means is actually when you're referencing and using Claude Design, you're going to use Anthropic's built-in front-end design skill. And we've already talked about how that produces generic AI aesthetics or AI slop. So you need to either feed it a design system yourself or feed in the right reference screenshots to give it a design system. So we can kind of approach this in three ways, and we'll actually show you two of those ways to compare the outputs. The first is using reference screenshots. So it's highly recommended that when you're creating your design system inside the Claude Design app, we need to make sure that when we are actually adding things and setting up our design system in Claude.ai, we are uploading as much context material to create the design system from as possible. So that is method one. We're going to use reference screenshots. So we're going to collect 3 to 5 screenshots from websites we like or our current brand assets and upload that to actually create that design system. Or method two is actually using a separate skill and actually creating the design system outside of the Claude Design app. So using what we have in the skill ecosystem. And in particular, we'll use a skill called Skill UI to basically extract design principles from a given website. So we're able to actually extract from a website that we like a full design system that we can then push straight into the Claude Design app. Or equally, we could actually do this all in Claude Design still, but copy and paste the skill content from that Skill UI directly into Claude Design. Each of these methods has their own pros and cons, and all of them will get you to a Claude Design system, which we'll show. Now, this will get you to that 90% point. So once we have a Claude Design system and we start actually creating that landing page, hopefully with a design system, we get fewer AI aesthetics and something we're actually happy with that's on brand. But I'm also going to show you after that 90% how we can actually export this directly to Claude Code and use additional skills to actually create that final 10% that takes it even further away from the AI aesthetic and closer to your brand assets, and actually something that you look at and you're proud of, and takes a little bit longer, but so worth the effort. Because if you remember, Claude Design is going to get you to the 90% really quickly, but skills on either side of that, whether it be for creation of the design system or actually optimizing the result afterwards, are going to get you to that 100% result, or at least 95%. Now, for this design system input, any thinking that we're leaving Claude to do is going to cost us in tokens, and the token usage limits for Claude Design are separated from Claude Code and separated from the Claude Chat app as well. So you have a separate usage limit, and there's been a lot of rumors going around that actually this is a really small limit. So you might do 1 or 2 design systems and then completely wipe out your limit, whether you're a pro or a max plan. So what we're going to do to actually reduce the token usage is to be more prescriptive. So the less thinking or the less ambiguity that we can give Claude Design, 1, the better design we'll probably end up with because we put more thought into actually planning it out. And 2, we're going to save on token usage because we're not asking it to actually go and explore various different design systems. We're just feeding it in. So even where we're feeding in reference screenshots, I'd highly recommend following the steps that we're going to go through. And we're actually going to go to ChatGPT's new image model, Image 2.0, and effectively create a design system or a starting point for a design system that we're then going to feed in as reference screenshots. Later, when we come to actually building out the pages, we again want to be less ambiguous and more prescriptive with exactly what we want. So we want a header page with a hero section that looks like X. We want testimonial section that looks like Y. And we can go and pull from various resources to make it a bit more prescriptive, a bit less ambiguous, and therefore reduce our token usage. So if we are going with method 1 of inserting reference screenshots rather than using the skill that extracts exact design packages, then what we're going to do is go to websites that we like or like the look of and actually start pulling those together inside ChatGPT's new image model. And we're going to say, use your new image model to help me actually create a design system. This way, we're not using Claude Design's thinking tokens and saving that for the actual execution. And instead, actually, ChatGPT has really generous limits, even on the free plan, for being able to create multiple images. And the new images that are coming out of ChatGPT Image, as you'll see, are actually pretty incredible. So this serves as a really good way to actually reduce the token usage before we feed it into Claude Design. So I've got a few different references of websites that I like the look and feel of. And all we're doing here is extracting things like color palettes, fonts, the way things are laid out on the page. We're effectively taking that and trying to create our own bespoke blend from websites we like. So the first one is Zernio.com, which is a social API for developers and AI agents. And you can see this has like a nice orangey red, and we have a similar orangey red inside our Agentic Academy. And I also like the fonts that are used inside here, and it just feels very modern. It doesn't feel like AI slop, and it feels, quite unique. So I quite like the look of this. So all I'm going to do is just take a screenshot of this, and I'll probably take a couple of screenshots, and I'm just going to paste them directly inside ChatGPT. And I quite like the design section here as well. These little graphics, everything feels like it's got a place inside here. And then the second one that I really like the look and feel of, and I kind of like to combine Stack AI and Zernio, is stackai.com. So from process to AI agent in minutes, it's all very clean, very modern. I like the shine that comes across here. It's got this nice video. Everything's got these really nicely laid out borders. I really like the rounded edges, the click through of all these different buttons here. And then if you're looking for inspiration as well, then I'd highly recommend going to either landbook.com or Dribbble, and you can basically go through all of these pages. There's some beautiful landing pages. Say you like the look of this one, you can click on, and it even gives you the different color palettes. So we could in fact even paste in a color palette, and it's even got some parts of the design system on there. You can go directly to the websites by hitting the visit button up top, and you can effectively take inspiration from those as well. So all we're looking is to create a bespoke design style for our own website based on inspiration. We're not looking to directly copy. So use your new image model to help me create design system on one page, tokens, buttons, colors, typography, use the inspiration designs. We just tell it to use your new image model because sometimes it decides to default to the older image models, and the new image model is pretty incredible. So the first design system came through, but what I didn't make very clear was that we are not Zernio. So we're not creating a design system for Zernio, and it's pretty much replicated that. So if you want to actually emulate an existing service, then it basically has replicated it. If we zoom a bit closer on screen, you can see all of these layouts are very similar to what we saw actually on the Zernio site. However, I've gone back and clarified with ChatGPT. Actually, the designs I uploaded were from several websites, not just Cernio, and they were to take inspiration from. Don't take their logo, and I've updated our logo, added some colors from our Agentic Academy page, and then added some screens again from stackai.com. It's then delivered a second version. You can see this is getting closer. We've got a bit more of our own color palette here, a bit closer to the oranges rather than Zernio's reds. Some really nice cards appearing in here. Lots of different colors, including the neutrals from stackai.com. However, it's included stuff that is standard AI slop aesthetic or AI aesthetic, things like the inter font, the typography, etc. So what I'm going to do as an additional step here is actually direct us to this taste skill. A guy called Leon has created a taste skill, which is basically a collection of skills that improve how AI tools write front-end code. And we'll come back to this later when we actually export the code from Claude Design. But I've actually navigated directly into the taste skill. So it's a collection of skills, all these different skills in here. I've gone into the taste skill and I'm looking for the AI tells. And I'm going to copy the AI tells section, which are basically the forbidden patterns. And that includes things like no inter font. We'll take that back to ChatGPT and I'll say, follow these patterns too, copy in that. So you can basically pull stuff from external resources to create the design system before we put it into Claude Design. And you can see how this is going to save us a lot of tokens because we don't have to do this thinking using Claude Design's tokens. We're actually going to put in something that we're almost there with into Claude Design, and then it's going to take it to the next step for us and actually create components that can be put into different elements like landing pages, etc. So all of the thinking around the design system can be done externally before we actually import it into Claude Design to build the design system, so to speak. And that will save you a ton of time. It will stop you running over your usage limits immediately. And it means you're going to have something you're really happy with before you put it into Claude Design as well. So this next version it's created is significantly better. It's still kept everything the same, apart from it's changed a few different things around the cards, the typography, the buttons, etc. So what we're going to do now is just refine these cards. I really like the look of the cards that are on stackai.com. So I've taken a screenshot. I'm going to describe the edits, make sure the cards are closely aligned with this, borders, shadow, rounded edges, etc. And then I think once we've done that, we'll probably have a good version that we can take into Claude Design. Now, I'm also going to quickly show you how you do a similar thing to emulate using Claude Code instead of ChatGPT images. And then we'll take our favorite one through to Claude Design, import that into Claude Design to actually then create our design system. And these are looking a lot closer to what we're expecting. So you can see it's now added this border shadow, which looks a lot closer to what we were expecting from here. So we're going to take and download that system. One thing I'm going to do as well, it's obviously great to upload a design style asset like this, but also I'm going to ask it to put this all in a design.md doc. Like, we want to be as thorough as possible. So all of these standards, I basically want a design.md doc or just a markdown document to actually paste into Claude Design as well when we come to it. So another method that we're now going to show you to actually extract an existing design system from a website is using this skill UI package. So this is a command line interface tool that reverse engineers any design system into a Claude ready skill. So to install it, we're just going to copy this command line here. And we also want to use ultra mode because basically that can go and visually extract the elements, including the hover interfaces, etc., from a website so that we can emulate it. You can see what you get in here. You get all the color tokens, the typography, the spacing, the hover and focus interactions. You get scroll journey screenshots, and it's all saved in its own folder. So if you're emulating Notion, for example, you get a Notion design folder with a skill, and then you can jump inside there, inside Claude Code itself, and say, actually, inside this folder, read the Claude.md, build me a UI that matches this. So arguably with this skill, you don't even need Claude Design, but there are a few elements where Claude Design really helps you refine your ideas. That is the exact reason we're still going to actually go and use this and port this into Claude Design. So let's go to a new terminal in VS Code. We're going to install this. So we're going to run npm install -g skill UI. We're also going to go and make sure we've installed Playwright and Chromium, which are basically going to be able to go and scan those websites for us. So we're going to run those commands as well. And this is the way it works. You extract a design system from a URL. You open the output folder and run Claude Code, and then you just ask Claude to build your UI. But what we're effectively just doing is the extraction of the system step, so we can then pass that into Claude Design as well. But we want to do it in the full cinematic ultra mode, which uses Playwright to capture scroll screenshots, interactions, animations, etc. So we want to see how well this can pull from a given design brief. So we're going to copy this command, skill UI -- URL. And for this one, we're going to actually use stackai.com because I really like the cleanness of this, and we can always add colors at a later date. So to clarify, we've already got a design system that we've built inside ChatGPT. That's one method. The second method is just emulating a design system and pulling that inside Claude Code. So we've got Skill UI, Stack AI Mode Ultra. We need to make sure URL is in there. Put the URL afterwards, and we're going to run that. It's got this really nice interface, website crawling, and it's basically using 0 API keys. So it's pure static analysis. It's not going to cost us a thing to scan these websites and actually build out a website design system for stackai.com that we can then actually take into either ChatGPT to create a design system from that, or just put it directly with all the text inside Claude Design as well. So that extracted in probably a couple of minutes, and it's extracted the colors, the fonts, the components, all animations, and it's output a completely new file called Stack AI Design. That file has a skill.md. If we were to come in here inside this folder and ask it to build out a UI, it would directly understand to work from this skill.md. It's got all of our design elements combined in one long design.md. So you can see color palette and roles, CSS variable tokens, typography rules. And then we've even got all of these individual things broken out into individual folders. So we've got the colors.json, spacing.json. We've got screenshots. So we've got the homepage screenshot. We've got literally screenshots of every single scroll element on the page. We've got references for our components, our animations. We've got all of the different fonts. And you can see, for example, that we've got longer screenshots for the full pricing page. And all of these elements we can basically work off of. So if we were building a design directly in this folder, which we'll do for a comparison point, it's basically going to read from this design and start building it out exactly using these patterns, which is super cool. For the purpose of what we are trying to demonstrate inside Claude Design, we take the design.md and probably a few of the screenshots and then put that into Claude Design so that we can actually edit it and work with it in Claude Design. But I'm also going to actually do a comparison directly of building in Claude Design versus just doing the website inside this folder. So I'm going to cd into the folder Stack AI Design, open up Claude, and I'm just going to say build me a landing page based on the Stack AI Design. Just give it a really broad brief. It's going to start reading from this specific skill. It knows all of the fonts, the references, the screens, etc. And let's see how close it can get to actually emulating the design we had there. But I'm also going to copy and paste that design system, the design.md, and take a few of the screens. And we're going to go back now to Claude Design and start building it out inside Claude Design. Now, just to remind you, we've got two different design systems here, and we're going to try them both out. So we've got design system 1, which is the one pager that we got from ChatGPT images directly. Another way is to actually just emulate an existing design system, which is why we use this skill inside Claude Code. So just two different methods of approaching the same problem. Now we want to actually turn this into a design system with actual tokens, one we're happy with inside Claude Design. And we're going to do it for both of these methods and then compare. So we're going to go into the design systems at claude.ai/design, and we're going to create a new design system. We're going to do it for the Agentic Academy, and then the blurb is going to be build agentic systems that run your business. We're not going to link the code on GitHub because we don't have any, but for the first system, we will actually go and link the code from the computer, and we will link it directly to the Stack AI Design. So we're going to have the full folder of assets available from that folder there. And we can even add the fonts, logos, and assets. Let's go in and add our logo first of all. And then if we go into the Stack AI Design, we can add the fonts folder, and we'll also add the tokens like the typography, spacing, colors, because then Claude doesn't have to think about what it's doing. It's just basically taking the design system already. And then we're going to go and copy again the design.md, and I'm just going to paste that design.md directly inside here. So we've given it access to the assets, we've given it access to the full design file with screens, and now we can continue to generation. It will take about 5 minutes to generate your design system. Let's keep it open in the background. And whilst we do that, we're going to do the same again. But this time we're going to pass in just the inspiration that we took from ChatGPT. So we're going to download that image. I'm going to make sure we upload that inside the fonts, logos, and assets. And we're also going to take the design system one-page markdown document that we got it to create from the back, off the back of that. And we're going to paste that directly in there. So this one has fewer assets to actually build from. But let's continue to the generation. Let's generate that and let's see how our two design systems come out. And you can see the first design system has started working. It's got a bunch of to-dos. It's a really nice interface because actually it updates us with a bunch of like, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to explore the Stack AI code base and uploads. I'm going to read the design tokens. I'm going to set the project title. I'm going to copy the logo and visual assets. And you can see that it's updating us as it goes through with exactly what it's reading, what it's doing. And this is why it takes so many tokens to do, because actually we've uploaded a lot of different information here. And I'm really keen to see how this comes out. Now, the next step will play out that actually Claude will come back and ask us a series of questions. And this is why you don't actually independently do this inside Claude Code. If you want more of an iterative flow, then you use something like Claude Design, because actually it's going to ask you a bunch of questions. You get to feedback on certain things. We're then going to show you how to actually interact with certain elements on the page to make some smaller changes. All of these things are much harder when you're actually generating a page directly inside VS Code or Claude Code, for example. So let's come back to Claude Design and review the two separate outputs. So the first one is the one that was based on our ChatGPT design system, where we had all of these colors, the Satoshi variable font. You can see that it's got a really clean interface when you start to interact inside Claude Design. It lays everything out really nicely. So you can actually give it direct feedback. So the colors look good, for example. So we can say these look good. And then it switches to the next card. These neutrals look good as well. And then I guess the semantic colors look good. Backgrounds look pretty good. And then the primary family of font is Satoshi variable, which I think was correct. So we can say that these look good. And then we even can see the different header levels. So we've got header 1, header 2, etc. And if we wanted to say, actually make the top header larger, then we could do that by hitting the needs work button. But all of these look pretty good. I like the typography there. The spacing grid looks good. And it looks like it's effectively taken a lot of that inspiration from the design that we fed in the first place. And what we're effectively doing is heading down all of these different cards to approve various different things. And you can see this is what the buttons are going to look like. So when you hover over them, they're going to look like this. When they're disabled, they're going to look like this. I think these look quite good. Secondary and ghost buttons, these look good also. So we basically go through all of these different forms and approve them. So we get an individual look at exactly what we're approving. So let's say actually we don't want the focus to blend orange. We can actually describe what we prefer. So more subtle orange. On the focus box, we submit that. That's going to be put into the inputs and the chat on the left-hand side, and it will effectively go and change that and then put it back for us for review again. These look good. It's now actually made that immediately more subtle. So by editing this specific element, rather than actually just asking about the whole site and inserting all of the context again, what we're able to do is actually reduce the token usage. So you use a lot of tokens up front, but you can actually save a lot of tokens by doing what we've done and actually designing the design system like elsewhere and then bringing it into Claude Code at a later point so that you are more comfortable just approving things. If we had just written a prompt to start with, there would have been a lot more back and forth where we'd use more tokens to do this. And equally, instead of going through the needs review, you can actually go down to any of these, right? So you can see all of the ones we've ticked so far, and these are all the ones that we need reviewing. So you can see the alerts, and you can say looks good there. So what we're doing is just giving Claude direct feedback on what we think about the designs here. And when you tick looks good, it's not costing us any tokens. It's only when we say needs work. So we're going to say looks good to all of these. I mean, it's done a really good job, to be honest. Agentic Academy, it's taken the logo in. We've got a dark and a light version. And now we start to get into the actual marketing kit, which is effectively our feedback on specific designs. So before we go and actually create any pages, it just gives us like a hero and how that hero would look. So it's build agentic systems that run your business. I don't really like the Agentic Academy V2 button up there. Orchestrate AI agents with enterprise grade security from process to AI agent in minutes, designed for IT and enterprise architecture teams. So it doesn't have any context of the audience that I'm serving. So all of that copy is totally wrong, but we're not really worried about the copy right now. We're just worried about the AI aesthetic. And then we can scroll down the hero and you can see it's reverted a little bit here back to this AI icons and the bento grids that are commonly seen in AI interfaces as well. Let's say looks good for now. We then have an app console kit, so we can see what this might look like on the back end. And this is quite nice, actually. So we've gone through, we've approved everything, and it says now your design system is ready. And what we're able to do is click published, and then we can actually use this system to create a new design for our landing page. So we've got nothing yet in terms of a landing page. So I also wanted to show you that in the back end, you can see all of the different design files that are feeding any design going forwards with this design skill. So it's set up in a similar way to that UI skill actually generates designs. So we've even got a skill.md that's been generated on our behalf for this design system. So if we open the skill.md, it says use this skill to generate well-branded interface and assets for Agentic Academy. So anytime we ask it, generate something for the Agentic Academy, it's able to actually take this skill. So if we wanted to, if we didn't need the interface here, we could effectively take all of these project files, download them, put them into our Claude code, and then actually use this design system and start building out from there. So if you wanted to save your credits, you could actually do that. But I really like the visual interface that we're given to actually go through all of the different HTML elements. You can literally see they're all previewing on the right-hand side, and you can open those up in larger detail too. But not only that, you can actually ask it to make a tweak. You can add a comment that your team can see. You can make edits directly, like adding a background, changing the fonts. And actually you can just highlight things like this and use voice mode, or actually just click. And what we could say is leave a specific comment on a specific element. And this is why it's more powerful than using something like Claude Code out the box, because you are not in Claude Code able to, at this granular level, make an iteration. So we could, for example, say, make the outside of this button glow when it's hovered on. And you can see preview failed to render. So it was actually working then, but for some reason had a bit of a glitch. And this is part of the problem so far in Claude Design, and a lot of people experience. So we're just going to try it again. Give it more of a glow when being hovered. So again, failing to render. So you can see that these edits are trying to be pushed in the left-hand side, but nothing is happening. So maybe we need to do this on a per design basis rather than going into individual files. So it's a bit glitchy at the moment with edits, but the interface is really nice. You can see also all of the uploads that we added. Now let's quickly view the second design system, which, to remind you, was made by emulating stackai.coms. So this is not correct because it should be the Agentic Academy, not Stack AI. And we're going to go through and just make sure we're happy with the design system used inside here. And I really like the fonts that's being used in here. And this has been taken directly from the Stack AI page that we were happy with. This all looks good. Like these handwritten marks. I don't like that it's on a gray background. Remove the gray backgrounds behind the logo. This should be a white background. And also Academy should have the same font as the Agentic in the word mark. And all of those get pushed in the left-hand side and back into our review queue, which is great. Then we've got our spacing, the different types of elevation, components, and then we've got a separate hero section here. Oh, I don't like the blue so much now that I'm seeing it like this, but I do prefer this style over the other one that we saw. We go back to the hero section of the other one where we created it using the ChatGPT images. It looks a bit more AI generated, a bit more like AI slop, whereas this looks a bit neater in the design, especially with these different cards actually. So right now I'm siding with emulating an existing website and porting in that design system and then taking that. I actually don't like the blue in the header. Can we change those to be like a gray color for like solutions, templates, customers, pricing, resources? So change that in the actual component, and hopefully it can actually understand which component to change, and then it goes through and will make the changes there. So it hasn't actually understood which component to change the blue inside, but let's see if we can go to the specific component and actually make that change. Can we change the blues here to more subtle gray colors? So let's see if we change it in the component, whether it will actually change back in the marketing UI kit as well. And what's great is you get the visibility on the left-hand side of exactly what is being changed. So you can see now log in and learn more is a more subtle color. Make sure the header has the same colors as displayed in the components. So it shouldn't have blue text for the drop downs. It should have gray text. Okay, so we're happy with that design. We can also see the design files again and actually share those design files if we wanted to hand it off to Claude Code. It's also useful at this point to go into claude.ai/settings/usage, and you can see where you are at with your current Claude Design usage. So I'm on the 20x max plan. So if you're on the pro plan, you might have already hit your limit by this point, but we've basically got its own weekly limit. And I've used 25% by just doing the 2 design briefs where we barely had to do any thinking. All of the work was done outside of Claude Design. So you can see how quickly you eat up your usage here, but keep an eye on that as we start to build out more. Now, based on the 2 design systems that we've taken through, we've got to now decide which one we want to build out our landing page using. And I think actually the clean look of this system is a lot more fitting to my brand than this, which looked a bit more generic. Although it has nicer colors, I like the oranges that fit with the brand. I think this one looked, although it's monochromatic, nicer in terms of the cards and the general layout and the fonts. So I'm actually going to go forward with this Stack AI design system. And what I can do now is actually use this system to create a new design. So I know it seems like we've done a lot of work up until this point, but we've shown you a few different methods in which you can actually create your design system. And from all of the threads and tips that I've read, this is the most important thing. Creating the design system up front, one that you like, being able to stray away from those AI aesthetics. So make sure that you spend your time actually planning out that process and building a design system that you like, that you can then give good references to Claude Design and not actually sponge all of your Claude Design usage immediately, trying to go back and forth with Claude Design to change a few colors in the design, for example. Now, the benefit in doing all of this up until this point is that design system does not only go across our landing page, we can now use that for our slide deck, our app development, and for everything that Claude is basically going to add into this visual asset list. We can now use this design system, and we've got a consistent design system. Now, if you remember, we set Claude Code off in the background with a task to actually just build out a UI straight off the bat to emulate stackai.com. So let's go back and revisit how it actually performs. So whilst we were messing around with all this typography and giving specific feedback, how did it do straight out the box with that UI skill in rebuilding it based on everything it had taken from the website? So we had the original Stack AI website, just to remind you. We've got these hover effects, we've got the video up here, we've got trusted by these different clients, and then we've got sections with all of these really nicely laid out cards. So on the left hand side is the one that it's built on our behalf. It's even got a few stacked things as a logo that it's built here. You can see it's not exactly the same font, but it is very similar. It's even taken the video asset from stackai.com. It's copied all of the headers up here and has a similar set of highlights. All the highlight colors look very, very similar. The hover effect hasn't quite copied over. So these have all got hover effects over here, but you actually can't really see the hover effects here. The cards definitely aren't as nice down here, right? But it's tried to emulate this, what we do best. Stack AI features, and it's created a bunch of cards. This is very AI aesthetic, so we'd need to go in and change that. But you can see that actually it's tried to bring all of the same text across, and we could have an image in here. And I must say, I'm quite impressed with what it's done out of the box. Now, if we did not use the skill UI skill to extract this from stackai.com, then we probably would have ended up with something that was pretty generic and using the inter font and all of those AI telltale signs. But this actually, straight out the box, doesn't look that AI generated. I'm quite impressed with that. The difference, however, comes to when you want to make those iterative changes to specific things, specific elements on the page. So it might be quite clear if you want to make a change to the title. That's not going to be very difficult, but you can't pinpoint a specific logo on this page visually like you can in Claude Design and say, actually just change this icon. It's basically got to push a load of context back into it, and it will take a lot longer to identify the exact resource unless you go through the code base and try and find that yourself. So what Claude Design enables is for you to go into those specific design files and give the feedback on that specific element, and therefore it will be changed across all your designs. So maybe that's in the design system, or as we'll see when we create a landing page from the design file, you can do that on a component level on a page, and that is what makes this really powerful. So let's start off with our landing page, and we're going to go create. We're going to start with the context of the design system, and we're going to choose our chosen design system. We can also actually start with a sketch. So if we have a good idea of what things should look like in terms of the landing page, then we're actually going to start with a sketch. And what we are going to do is actually go to our ad page and just redesign this ad page based on our new design system. We'll take the same text, we'll take the same video embedded at the top, and what we're trying to do is effectively create all of this in a nicer format with the testimonials, with the FAQs, just a simple landing page to demonstrate exactly how you build this out. So we can take screenshots now, and I'm just going to individually screenshot these so we give it the best possible chance to emulate these resources. And you can see I'm being really detailed, adding every single screenshot. So that has a lot of files to work from. But what we don't want to do, what we want to avoid the trap of, is getting it to just recreate this fairly generic structure that we've got in our website already. So we're going to make that clear in the prompt. And this is where you get a few more issues with Claude. So we've attached loads of files, and now we have to zoom out massively to get to the describe what you want to create button at the bottom. So we're going to say, using this design system, I've attached a page that we've got that is currently a landing page for our Agentic Academy. It has a hero at the top, which is embedding a YouTube video, and I can link to the YouTube video. It's got a link to the school.com/scrapes, which is the Agentic Academy. I've attached details of all the different sections through screenshots on the page. It includes features, it includes testimonials, and it includes FAQs. I've also attached some of the images as part of those feature sections. I want you to create a structure based on the design system, not based on the screenshots, but include all of those elements, please. And again, we're having to zoom out a little bit, but let's check we're happy with that. And now hopefully we've given it enough context to actually plan this out in detail. If you don't know how you want your landing page to look, I'd highly recommend going to landbook.com, finding a website that looks like you might like the sections of. So if you're an e-commerce business, go and find an e-commerce website, or you can go to sections inside here and you can see like, actually, I want my value proposition to look like this. I want my features section to look like this. And this one's quite nice actually. And what you can do is screenshot it and then take it back to Claude Design and say, actually, I want the features section to look more like this. So we're actually going to be able to iterate on it in a moment. But if you don't have a design already, then I'd recommend actually thinking about, what sections do you want on the website? What sections make sense? And just emulate what good looks like right now in the market. And you can see, okay, it's listing the files, it's reading the files. I have enough context to build this now. Let me set up the project files and build the page following the design system. So it's now starting out on actually building out the landing page for us. And we'll come back and show you how it looks and how we can iterate on it. And I'm just going to go check my usage, and we're currently at 30%. So it's only used 5% more doing that, but don't forget I'm on the max plan. So on the right-hand side, we've got our previous landing page. On the left-hand side, we've got our new design. The text is so much nicer. Like, I must say, the text is so much nicer. These sections also in the features are laid out in a nicer way. So we have the one on the left, one on the right, one on the left switching there. And we also have, these subtitles for that. It's also actually taken the screenshots that I put in of the Agentic OS, which were in our old branding colors, and actually updated those as if it was going to be in these new colors. So we need to change them back to what the Agentic OS command center actually looks like. But, this is not looking bad. It's obviously made a bit of a mess of some of these screenshots rather than taking them as is. However, the structure of the general page is fairly nice. It's then taken the what members are saying. And again, these were screenshots from before. And I think the screenshots probably look a bit better, but these are definitely clearer to read. A live feed of wins, builds, and milestones. Yeah, actually quite like this. It's obviously taken all of the text and has it taken it verbatim? Let's have a look. What makes Agentic OS different from Claude Code on its own? Claude Code alone has no memory. So yeah, it literally has taken the exact text as well from the screenshots, which is quite impressive. And then down here, we've got our logo, which is turned into this spinning GIF almost. And it's saying, you can get the Agentic OS or watch the intro lesson, and then get the Agentic OS actually links directly, I can see down there, to our landing page. So join 1,200 members using Agentic OS to run their projects, clients, and businesses on autopilot. And then it's got a bunch of links down here, none of which actually link to anything right now. Agentic Academy, the operating system for Claude Code, build, deploy, and run agents around your business. I mean, I must say, I overall am very impressed, and I don't think it looks very AI generated, which was exactly the reason we'd gone down this approach to generate stuff in this style. However, there are a few bugs that we can actually draw directly on here and comment directly on here to change. So actually, if we click comment, we get this really nice interface that's almost like any other web builder, where it says, describe the issue or suggestion. And it's quite clear that this isn't very nice because it's huge. So we can say reduce the size of the main header, and we can send that to Claude. We can see on the left-hand side, we are able to actually select individual elements, and it will only take that little bit of context because it knows exactly what element it is, and it will edit the style.css file directly, which is the file that's going to determine the font size for these main headers, and it will reduce it. So that's not going to take much context at all. And we can literally go back to our usage. We can see, I think that actively updated, we've used 2% to make that change. So it's significant, but if we were actually going back to Claude Code and asking it to make that change and weren't able to pinpoint the element, it would use significantly more. We can also go in and edit it directly. So we don't need to use AI tokens. We can actually, go in and edit the text. So it's exactly like if we were using something like WordPress, Webflow, or Framer. Let's delete the lesson here. How to use Claude Code as an agentic operating system. And maybe we actually put a space in there, and that looks a bit better. So actually now we're starting to get a real feel of what things can start to look like. We'll say 1,200 members, letting AI agents handle their work. Let's try the draw function. And this isn't something I necessarily want for myself, but maybe it's like watch the video and points down to the video down here just to see if it's able to actually do that. That's cool. So we can click and then start typing. Make this watch the video, make it not a button, and make it just like an arrow pointing down at the video below it. And then we can send or queue that message. Let's see if it works this time on the landing page. And you can see it's actually sent the drawing with that saying, you know, here's the note, here's the drawing, make that change. So again, it's like targeting a specific element and trying to make that change. So let's see. So it's reloaded, it's got watch the video and then get the Agentic OS. Not sure exactly it's understood that. So let's try it with a comment. So again, you know, AI is open to interpretation. If I wasn't very clear with my instructions, then on me be it. Actually, I'm going to try it again with the drawing. I'm going to add my comment. Instead of saying watch the video as a button, I don't want it to be a button. I want it to just basically be a secondary call to action. The first is get the Agentic OS, so that should be the main button. And then the secondary call to action is like a subtext, watch the video with an arrow like I've drawn pointing down to the video below. So like a graphical arrow. And this time I'm just going to copy that text, and I tried to add it down here, but it does not work. So let's just make sure we have the arrow on there. We might need to come across to the left-hand side and actually just, you know, find an arrow somewhere else and like a graphical representation of an arrow to try and get this through. But I'm just trying to see how easy it is to actually make these edits and how much context it's actually going to take up every time. So you say the benefit is like actually being able to edit these things, but if it isn't able to edit these things at the moment, then you might as well just be doing this in Claude Code and just, you know, asking the same things if it's not going to rinse your context. And again, it's not understood. It has moved the get the Agentic OS to over here, but it's still got watch the video and no arrow down there. So what I'm going to go to is ChatGPT. This is a better idea, and give it the same information. Upload the screenshot. I want you to create a diagram that's a graphical representation of this landing page, but instead of the watch the video call to action, it should just be like a playful watch the video with a graphical arrow pointing down at the video below it. Draw that in a similar style to the UI that you see. Let's see if we send that prompt, if ChatGPT can get closer to that representation. And once we've got that image, then we can bring it back to the chat window across here and try and do the same again, because it'll be the third time trying to do the same thing. We've seen that we can actually make comments on specific things, but we can't actually append like images. What would be really helpful is if we can make a comment directly on this, append the image that we're going to get from ChatGPT, and therefore make the change. Like in contrast to something like Figma or Canva, where you'd be able to actually, you know, make the changes directly, we can only make the changes up to an extent. We can obviously make edits on here around background, font, the size of things, but these are all deterministic things. We can't just drag this across the page. We have to actually, if we want to move it, like we have to decide, you know, how much margin it has, how much padding it has, but this is all going to be a little bit complicated in this app. And the idea isn't to build the perfect website here, it's to mock up a 90% version so we can improve it elsewhere. So it's mocked it up there, like watch the video. And I actually quite like that. I'm going to download it, and then we're going to go back across here, go upload that file directly. So change the watch the video to not be a link, but just the text on the page, like the screenshot attached. And with all this back and forth, you can see we're still on 32% use. So these aren't using a huge amount of tokens, and that is the best way, and the way that others advise to actually interact with this website or interact with your designs is just like pick an element on the page and actually focus on that element. Now, what we can see is happening is what we probably expected to happen, which is we have this really great, you know, human idea for a design, which can be represented in an image. But when we try to actually execute it using something like Claude Design, it's very deterministic. It needs to put something on a page in a given place. So it would need, for example, to put this image next to the Agentic OS, and the image is what is actually being rendered in the background. Or the background is rendered with this watch the video image there. So it can't quite compute how it actually is able to do that, and therefore it struggled to do it. So what we're left doing is actually just commenting or drawing on here, remove the watch the video and blue arrow entirely from here, and just center the get the Agentic OS button. Also, everywhere on the page where it says plans start at $77 a month, say plans start at $37 a month. Let's see if it's able to, even though we've selected that element, actually change elements like the plans start at text at multiple areas on the page. So really putting it through its paces here. But yeah, all the guides that I've read have talked about being really specific and really prescriptive with the changes you want to make. And that's how we got to this nice looking landing page in the first place, because we were really prescriptive with the design system going into it. And as we expected, it's only done one thing at a time. So we're gonna have to go in and say, get rid of this. And yeah, maybe it's best to actually pick individual things and only focus on one change at a time. Plans start $37 a month. And you can see that we can, queue a bunch of changes and see how when it reloads, hopefully all of those changes we made. So make a single change at once and then reload it after all the changes. But yeah, be really prescriptive with that single change. And that's the lesson you learned there. Now, the problem with, it redesigning these images is it's actually built out these images, and they are not images, they're kind of elements. It's actually mocked up. So we can see, for example, how this might struggle when we actually start to compress the page. You can see that we've got things like the buttons starting to squash there, and the page is not responsive. So we're just going to use a blanket statement, which is make the page mobile responsive. Also, in the features list, e.g. one dashboard for everything, make sure that the images that are showing the dashboard are just the actual images. So I'm going to upload the actual images now in order. I think we had 4 images, which I'll attach here, and then we can reload, let it try and tackle the responsiveness, and let it try and tackle the images and insert the images instead of trying to mock up these dashboards. It's kind of done too much work for us because we weren't prescriptive enough in our landing page design. Okay, so we've reloaded. It's changed these to $37 a month, and you can see it's really messed up on this image addition there. Let's see if it's responsive. It is looking pretty responsive. There's a few bugs here and there, but we're not worried about fixing those too much for this demonstration. But this image issue is a problem. So let's go down here. The images that you just added that I uploaded, they're huge. So they no longer fit next to the features. Can you scale them to be a similar size to the actual features, like schedule once, run 24/7? And once that is ready, I think I'm pretty happy with this. It looks like an authentic landing page that is branded in a way that I like and I think fits our branding. The text obviously on yours might be a bit different if you didn't have a landing page that you were already working off and you were working on one that you needed to spin up. And I would not recommend using Claude Design to optimize the text. I would use a copywriting skill or a conversion rate optimization skill. And we've got more info in the community around, the different skills that you can use for that. However, for the design, this is really a cool way to interact with it and build out, you've got the different design files, you've got the landing page HTML, which you can interact with directly, draw on, make comments, even if it doesn't work perfectly. Now, the difference, if you think about it, between how we've built this up with Claude.ai/design, their design tool, versus what we did earlier, where we just used the skill UI to basically mock up the same landing page. Like, this looks pretty good, but we'd need to make a hell of a lot of changes to actually apply all of our brand context, convert it to everything that we see on screen. Whereas this has taken these same elements, but actually able to apply it to our context and our brand. So there are benefits in obviously emulating this directly from Claude Code and doing that. There are benefits of doing it inside the design system, which we've seen today. You can see it still hasn't managed this image problem, so I'll keep fixing that. And then once we've managed the image problem, we can then export it to Claude Code. And what we're going to do is take the taste skill. I'll leave the links down below in the description. We're going to install by just running this command in the terminal, npx skills add the taste skill, and then we're just going to go into VS Code, give it the contents of the file that we download from Claude Design, and just tell it, okay, we're going to use the redesign skill. Use this when a project already exists and needs to be improved. It focuses on auditing the current UI first, fixing the weak layout, spacing, hierarchy, and styling decisions. So it's designed to take what we've got and add that 10% that we talked about at the end of it. So basically building the app, which we've done, and then taste skill in Claude Code is that final 10% polish. And we'll see how that compares to the Claude Design that it actually created here and show you whether it's actually worth doing or not. So we can see it's sorted out the images now, and I'm pretty happy with how this is all looking now. I might even go back and increase the font size here. And then what we can do is hit share. I'm interested to do it as a handoff to Claude Code. So we can send it to our local coding agent, or we can send it to Claude Code Web, or we can download the zip. So it's going to say, fetch this design file, read its README, and implement the relevant aspects of the design. Let's copy the command. Let's open up a new Claude Code terminal here. And then we're going to use the taste skill to redesign that specific HTML file or that design. So when we use this taste skill, because they're effectively just a set of skills, we can point it at any file. So we're just going to say, use the redesign skill on this landing page.html file. So once that's built, we'll just type that into Claude and let the taste skill go to work. And we'll show you the difference between the version that we've mocked up in Claude Design versus the version where it's actually de-AI'd and done the extra 10%. And we'll see what it identified as like AI traits in which are the things that it's actually gone and changed. And okay, we've come across an error. So it says, could you download the HTML file or paste the HTML content into there? So we're going to go back to share and let's just export it as a standalone HTML. Right now, we don't need necessarily the design files to come with it. If we did, we'd download the whole project as a zip. And this will make it quicker because we'll just take it directly into this instance and actually just use the redesign skill directly on that. So make sure you install the redesign skill. And I've got mine in here in my Agentic OS, Des redesign skill. So we're going to just open up Claude Code and we're going to say redesign based on the best practice in the Des redesign skill. And I'm just going to add a new file in here, landing page original.html. I'm going to take that opened up HTML file, and there are probably easier ways to do this, but I'm going to put it inside this landing page original.html file, save that, and then just right click, copy the relative path, give it that, and let it spin off and start working on that landing page redesign. And then I'm really keen to see side by side, like what things it identifies as AI aesthetics, and then how that looks compared to the version that we've actually spun up at the end. So bringing it back here now, it's run through the redesign. Here's what the redesign addressed from the audit. So it's added some formatting around the typography, including weight variety, to give it some like inconsistency, I guess natural inconsistency. It's changed some stuff around the colors. The layout, removed the zigzag reverse pattern, features now alternate media position, interactivity. So when you actually active or press on all buttons, there's some difference in how it scales. It's changed the content from generic numbers like 1200 to 1247. So it's a non-round number. It's added some stuff around accessibility and code quality, and then some components have been changed. So for example, the testimonial avatars are using squircles or rounded squares instead of circles, and the FAQ replaced the traditional accordion. So we can now go into the HTML file that it's spit out of this, and yours might spit out a HTML file as well. And above that, it also has a bunch of stuff it's identified in the audit, by the way. So we can go back and we can open up just a HTML previewer. And on the right-hand side, you can see the reformatted version, which is supposedly a little less AI generated. So you can see it's changed the numbers up here. It's made everything a bit more rounded. Oh, I don't like this. So it's changed the bullets to emojis there. Instead of having these alternate features on here, it's got kind of individual features, although it's replaced the images with stock images. And then it has also changed down here these testimonials to put them in more of a list. Now it is very responsive, like this is better for the screen size that I'm operating on. And if I open it up, let's see if it actually, yeah, it does do better for the screen size elements. However, most of it, I would say I actually prefer the Claude Design out the box. Whether it looks more AI or not, I think the actual design of this is much cleaner than what we've been given over here at the edge. It's also changed the logo for some reason. So it's quite clear that this taste design does not handle some things very well, but it does do it to a specific aesthetic. Now, one thing that we should try also is to actually run the same prompt again. If we press up, redesign based on the best practices, but instead now we will say, for example, there's more skills inside there. One of them is the brutalist skill. So it's going to apply well, we can either do minimalist or we can do brutalist. Maybe we'll do both and see the difference. But let's actually use this skill because it's a useful skill to see different outputs. So I'm actually saying not redesign, reformat using, let's do the brutalist skill, and let's point to the original landing page rather than the one it has just edited. So reformat using the brutalist skill. I'm also going to open up a second terminal and do exactly the same to do the minimalist skill. So it's going to redesign both of those. Let's have a quick look at the brutalist skill, quick look at the minimalist skill. And I'm just showing you this because actually maybe Claude Design isn't the be all and end all, and you can actually leverage skills inside Claude Code to do this instead, or to do the work that Claude Design would be able to do. And if we just quickly flash up the two that we've redesigned with the taste skill, the first one is the minimalist. So you can see that it's kind of changed all the aesthetic on the fonts. And then as we go down, it's kind of just made things a little bit more simple, and animations have been added to sort of load in things as you scroll through the page, but not a huge amount has changed, but actually it's quite nice and minimalist. And then the other style that's built in that we've tested out is the brutalist. And you can see that this is totally different. And of course you can go in and change the color schemes here, but this is completely different style, but I actually quite like it. It's very agentic operating system vibe, where you've got everything in this dark chromatic view with like some accent red. We've got like this code script type text. You've got the nice hover animations across to play the YouTube video. All of these sections which have been put into grids. Of course, it's taken the incorrect images again, but we could always replace those quite easily. But this is quite a nice way to lay this all out. And this is very different style and does not look AI generated, at least from my point of view at all. So let's say the landing page is now complete. Okay, so the next project, now we finished the landing page, is wireframing. So another thing that Claude Design is supposedly really good at is creating prototypes or wireframes of different processes. And we didn't really get the interactivity of Claude asking us different questions because we were so prescriptive in the last brief for the landing page. But now we should see when we go to actually create a wireframe for our command center, let's call it, then actually this time it's going to ask us questions and be really interactive. And it's one of the other benefits of using something like Claude Design. So if we hit create, and what we are effectively going to do this time is create a mobile app for something that we've built out inside our community, which is the Agentic OS Command Center. So think of this as a UI that sits on top of your terminal, where if you as a business owner can just write down your goals that you want to achieve, similar to like you do in a terminal window in Claude Code where you type in different tasks. But the difference is that actually you can go into a series of project tasks and see multiple conversations under one hood. So you can see the progress of multiple chats or multiple tasks which relate to a single goal. So it's like a way of raising us above the individual bits of tech overhead like GitHub commits, etc., to just focus on literally different goals. All I'm going to do is actually screenshot this right now. And what we're trying to design is an app interface, a mobile interface, so that users could actually use this on their mobile. So right now it's just a desktop interface. It works really well. People are giving really good feedback, but actually nobody's able to use this on their mobile at the moment. So I'm going to actually go back into here and we're going to paste in screenshots. We want to make sure we're connected up to the correct design system. And what we are doing is pasting in screenshots for this wireframe, and then we will give it a brief, but we're going to keep it a bit more open this time, and it will come back and it will ask us questions. And we could obviously also point it to the code too. I don't want to take up too much context of it reading the whole code base. So what I'm going to do is just give it a couple of screens and then ask it to design how it would actually view these screens on mobile. So we're going to give it the main screen, and we're also going to give it the scheduled task screen, where we create different scheduled tasks that can run on repeat without a user having to touch them. And we're just looking for effectively a designed wireframe. So I want you to help me build out a wireframe for a mobile app, or just a mobile interface, a responsive design for mobile, for a product that we've launched inside our Agentic Academy called the Command Center. And I'm just basically attaching all those screens, making sure that, again, we are prescriptive enough that it's not going off the rails and we don't need to use loads of tokens to get it back in the right direction, but still open enough that it's going to come back and actually use the interactive feature to come back and ask us questions like, what do we actually want the mobile app to do? And you can see right now it's already mapping out the different questions it has. So this is like a planning stage that's really useful inside this inside Claude Design that helps us feed more context in and get a design that's more accurate straight off the bat rather than having to rework a lot of different things. And of course, it does this as well inside the Claude Code terminal, but this is laid out in a really nice manner and relates directly to our design. So quick questions on the Command Center mobile wireframe. Do I want it to be like a sketchy hand-drawn? I'd quite like it to be closer to the real design system. Which screen should I wireframe? Pick all that apply. So let's do the feed, let's do the goal detail, let's do the scheduled jobs list and skills list and skill detail edit. How many variations per screen? So this is really powerful. We can basically ask for multiple variations per screen so that we can choose from those. So let's do 2 variations per screen in the order of preserving our tokens. What should variations explore? Probably navigation pattern. In fact, decide for me. I'm not exactly sure. Any nav pattern you already prefer? No preference. How important is the workspace switcher on mobile? That is the workspace switcher between different client folders. So this is really important. How should a user start a new goal on mobile? Persistent composer bar at the bottom, maybe. So like a chat window at the bottom. You can see these are really in detail questions that are really making me think about the design. And that is the purpose of this design planning. Feed grouping on mobile, decide for me. Create job on mobile. Decide for me. We want to view the skills, that's most important, but we also want to edit the skills. What should tweaks let you toggle? So we're going to explore the feature of tweaks. So tweaks are something that's going to show up in the design previews that's going to allow us to actually flick between 2 things. So light and dark screens, sketchy versus clean stroke, variations per screen, density. So let's just do light and dark and sketchy versus clean stroke. And we can also suggest other things. How should screens be laid out in the deliverable? All variations side by side on one infinite canvas. Yeah, I like that. Device frame. Let's go for iPhone. Do you want annotations and callouts? Yeah, let's have callouts. And anything else I should know? No, let's just go ahead with it. And let's check in. We're at 38% used on our Claude Design. Let's see where we get to by the end of this wireframe. So right now we're seeing exactly how each step, now that we've got the design system, is actually affecting our context and token usage. But based on what everyone's said so far, I'm actually quite impressed with the lack of token usage. I guess I'm on the max 20x plan. So if you're on the pro plan, it would have blown through your usage by now. But I've been able to do quite a lot so far, back and forth, because I've done the upfront planning in the design system. So we had the landing page, which was really scoped out. And now we've got the wireframe, which is much less scoped out. And it's asking us those questions and giving us the ability to actually decide on the design direction, which is really cool. This is the stuff that you don't get inside the Claude Code interface at the moment, for example. Okay, so we are at 42% used now. So that took around 4% to make, and we'll have a look through those. But I just want you to remember also that the power in using something like Claude Design is that you get all the files in the background. So if you ever want to take these projects, you've effectively created the underlying HTML and CSS files, which is brilliant. It's just a way to actually see that code translated in this preview screen, I guess we can call it. You've got the Command Center mobile wireframe. I like how this is totally different. Like this is like a canvas view, like you'd see in Figma, versus what we saw before, which was like more like a web page HTML preview scroll down. This one is like literally like a canvas view where we can like drag and drop things around. Like they're quite rigid, but we can like, you know, swap A and B if we wanted to. And it's got a little summary, like a README at the top. So mobile wireframes for Agentic OS Command Center, 2 variations per green. A sticks to the desktop mental model. B reframes for one-handed mobile use. So quite like that. Fonts and colors come from the Agentic Academy design system. Great. Everything else is intentionally low detail to keep structure in focus. So you can see that we've got a few things that we've not seen before. On the right-hand side, we've got these tweaks. This is an awesome feature that basically allows you to do like a switch between multiple settings. So say we wanted dark theme instead and we wanted to see those in dark theme, then we can see that very easy. Say we wanted the sketchy style versus clean style. I quite like this clean style. And say we wanted to remove notes entirely at first and then put the notes back on. Let's have a look at the individual screens. And one thing you can immediately see is that it's not quite nailed the iPhone screen here. So we have A for the feed view. And if we go back and see the feed view is where we effectively assign different tasks and goals. You can see everything's a bit cramped. We've got all of our categories up there, which we can probably remove. They look a bit nicer up here. Oh, okay, this isn't categories up here. This is like redesigned Yeah, I like this a bit more. This is redesigned for the mobile view B, remember. We've got like 5 in review, 8 done, 6 scheduled tasks. The notes are a bit all over the place, so we can get it to actually try and fix the formatting. I like that we've got like the new goal. You could type in down here, you can select the model. It's taken some of the text from what it's seen in the screenshots. Like this feels like a mobile view, and this doesn't. But the cool thing is like it's given us variations. You don't get this in many tools. Like Claude Design has given us, with 4% context usage, like 2 variations per screen. And we could ask for 5 variations per screen. And this really acts as the seed for us to start thinking, okay, actually, I quite like that view, but here's what I'd change instead. And obviously the formatting's a bit off. We've got like the standard time and battery up there, and then it crosses over. But like when you look at the screens, they're not too far off. So on the goal detail where we actually enter the goals, similar to what we do up here, we've got like enter your goals. Then you've got the activity, you've got the files, everything that we've got inside there, and some pre-written tasks too, and the ability to reply. So like a chat interface, like we're used to, which is cool. We've then got these scheduled tasks. And again, when it's just replicated the dashboard, it looks pretty poor, but when it actually thinks about the design of a mobile app, it looks significantly better and significantly more optimized. Then browsing skills, that's great. You can toggle the skills on and on. That's not really a thing, but yeah, I like the way it's able to search skills, add skills, etc. And then we've got the skill detail where you're able to actually go into raw or preview mode and see the skill detail. So I really like this. And there's no individual tweaks that I'd make, but let's see if it can clean up the formatting. The formatting is a bit all over the place. The notes aren't really showing. The header crosses over with all the iPhone functions. So can you just clean them up a bit? And also, I think, like, can we do a variation again on B? So we do a C variation, but based on B, because B is like the best style for each of the different screens. So we've asked it to do another variation, and let's just take a picture of the formatting as an example and paste that into the chat, send that in. Let's see if it can clean up the formatting, and let's see if by talking to it, we can actually get it to do a C variation, which is a variation on, multiple of these. And the power in doing something like this, as a non-technical person, as a non-designer, I could hand this off to a developer and they've already got the code or like the startings of the code to actually develop these screens. But the other benefit is I don't need to be a designer to actually mock this up in an incredible speed. This took a couple of minutes to get to this stage. How many hours would this take even a designer to get to this stage, never mind a non-designer? So it's a really powerful tool for that. Okay, so after that, we're at 54% used, but this has actually nailed it. It's added a section C, or a variation C rather. So we've got B and C now, and it's cleaned up all of the notes so we can actually see and understand the different notes on here. And we can obviously hide the notes too if we wanted to. But what we can see with this second variation is a change in style. So you can see these are very rounded, but this is more of a drop style on there. It's then filled in some more detail around, okay, these are done tasks, these are in progress tasks. So that's great. This doesn't really make sense for the context. Like it's added, a marker on which model it is, but it's got like the little send or approval buttons in there, which is quite nice. We've got like a backlog of runs on the YouTube newsletter scheduled task, also great. And it's tried to be a bit more creative here. It's got like a featured skill of the week. Maybe that's one we've used most. I mean, I like it. It's a bit different. Recent activity strip, jump back to skills in use. Okay, so maybe it's saying if you jump back a page, it will go back to a skill in use. I'm not exactly sure. Category pills at the bottom of each group. Again, I feel like some of these are not related, or like the notes are in the wrong place, maybe like category pills at the bottom of each group. That makes sense down here, but it's up here on the design. But anyway, the point being, like, it's come up with a second variation when we've asked it to. So it's not perfect, but like we said, we're aiming for like a 90% version that we can take forward. So I think this one has shown us some really good features, and we can probably move ahead now, take the design system and start working on some slides. So let's go back to the design app. And what we can actually do is either go in and create a slide deck directly, and we can actually give it a project name and move forward with some specific notes on these slides. Or we can take a tip that I saw from Peter Yang, which is actually if you want to make really dynamic slides, then start by asking Claude Design to actually generate a video and then work it back into slides. So if you ask it to create a slide deck, it's going to create something quite boring and generic and quite static, but videos are meant to be dynamic and motionful. So what we're actually going to do is ask it to generate a video first. And then from that video, we will duplicate the project and ask it to actually then generate the slides. So I don't personally do a lot of sales or pitch decks, but one thing that I do or enjoy doing is like posting LinkedIn carousels, for example. So for me personally, I'm going to go and take a LinkedIn carousel, one that I've previously posted, and ask to actually translate that content into a video. And therefore, hopefully we can extract the information into a really nice slide deck in this Agentic Academy slide system. So we're going to call it LinkedIn Carousel. And of course, it's not going to be a good fit to post on LinkedIn because it's not going to be the right format. But what we can do is LinkedIn Carousel slides, and the concept still carries through. So it's all about conveying almost like a tutorial or a set of tips through some slides instead of a LinkedIn carousel. So actually, instead of LinkedIn Carousel, I'm just going to call it Carousel Slides, tips to use Claude Code, for example. And we're going to create that there. We're going to go to my LinkedIn post, and it's all about tips to use Claude Code. And you can see that you are using Claude Code wrong. 10 config tips to go from chatbot to senior engineer. Firstly, it talks about agent teams. Then it talks about built-in slash commands. It talks about actually keeping context in various files external to your Claude.md and not overloading it. How to access blocked sites, force it to verify and fact check. And you can see these have all got like annotated diagrams on as well. And basically what we want to do is take this content and turn it and build it out into a slide deck. That has a little bit of information, but it kind of is a bit ambiguous. So what we're going to do is go and grab the YouTube transcript from the video that actually generated this post that I reviewed and edited in the first place. So I've now got the transcript. I'm going to go back to Claude Code and ask it to make a animated video explaining the 7 levels that I explain in this video transcript. And it's going to follow the Agentic Academy design system. I'm going to paste in the full transcript, and you can see that's pasted text there. So what we're basically doing is just make me an animated video explaining this. And therefore it will make not just a slide deck, but effectively a full plan for 7 scenes, intro, outro structure, starter animations. So we're sat at 62% used after it's generated that video. So still got some capacity in here. Let's have a look at what it built out. So you can see it's following the standards. I quite like this, how it's laid out the slides. It's very interactive. Shift plus tab to cycle through modes. I quite like that. On the right hand side, it's got this coding platform. It's going quite quickly. I must say it's got a lot of information. Claude.md onboards your new teammate. This is the structure of Claude.md. Didn't get time to read it, but I like the way it's going. It's definitely following the colors and the design system, right? 3 kinds of muscle memory. This is like commands, skills, and hooks. Stock copy and pasting, wire it up. Oh, I like this. This is cool. So it's adding animations, which is great. It's taken the context of our actual video, which was 7 levels of Claude Code. And this, for example, was all about planning at scale. So like splitting your plan into multiple phases. So it's definitely taken the essence of the text and turned this into a really cool video. But what we want is like slides that we can publish in different places. So teams of agents, it's showing multiple agents working. Like this is a lot better than I had expected it to be, actually. I wonder what this is using behind the hood. The Ralph loop. So it's like autonomous loops as well. The 7 levels, and then it lays out the 7 levels. Skip the trial and error, pick your next level, ship it. I like it. It's on brand and it feels very appropriate. So what we're going to do now is show you how to turn this into a slide deck. So if we go share, duplicate project, and you can see you can duplicate things as templates too. And what I'll just do now is actually say, can you turn this into a slide deck instead of a video that I can click through, toggle through basically. I also want to include some screenshots of each level. Like it's a bit overwhelming with the information on each slide. So I'm going to include 3 screenshots for levels 1, 2, and 3 that you can put into the slide instead of like overloading information. Just keep the key points. So I've taken 3 random screenshots there. I've asked it to turn it into a slide deck. 2 of them are Boris Cherny tweets. One of them is just like a Claude Code / commands file structure. So let's see how well it does in actually converting that, and whether it can actually contextualize the images that I've added and put them in the right place. who knows? We'll see. So it seems to have created it now. So let's go full screen and have a look through. So we've got the toggles down here that we can click through. So this looks exactly the same as the video so far. So we've got prompting with intent. Plan mode is read only. Claude researches and proposes the plan before touching a single file. Shift and tab, press twice to enter plan mode. That is true. And then it's got a few tips there, and it's got Boris Cherney's post as a tweet as well, which is cool. It's like reformatted that to be a tweet. Level 2, teach it how you work. So we've again got the tweet from Boris Cherney on the right-hand side, which is quite cool. So it's understood that it belongs with that slide, maybe because I told it that it was going to be for, sections 1, 2, 3. And then we've got a few key tips there. We've got a blurry image on the right, but it can't help that I've uploaded a blurry image. 3 kinds of muscle memory, stop retyping from the same prompts, commands you invoke, skills Claude invokes, hooks fires after. So this is quite cool, and I love how I do love the formatting, I must say. Stop copy and pasting, wire it up. So this is like wiring up to MCP servers, and we've got the Claude Code, MCP bridge, and then all of our services there. Planning on steroids, and we kind of like made this a bit more dynamic, where this is done, this is done, this is running. Repeat per phase, plan, execute, verify. Very cool, I like that. And then multiple agents, and I like how this one's actually changed the format a little bit. So one Claude researches, another one writes, a third reviews in parallel. And I like how this is almost like a story. We've got researcher, writer, reviewer, and writer number 2. Set it up, walk away, come back to a week of work. And this is the Ralph loop, level 7. The 7 levels, and we kind of finish there. So it's kind of lost a little bit of the dynamic nature of it. But to be honest, I am actually pretty impressed with where we've got to in terms of just creating a slide tech from a video there. We could go back and actually ask it to add in some more animations and make sure the animations keep. But I'm pretty happy with the outputs. So let's just have a quick recap on what we did, because it was a lot. We built basically a full design system for the Agentic Academy, and hopefully you were able to follow along at home and build your own too. So we built a community landing page based on our ads page that we currently got up, and we built that using several different methods. So the first is we actually used the skill UI to emulate an existing landing page, and we saw how Claude Code performed on that versus Claude Design, where we could iterate and manipulate individual elements on the page. We also went to ChatGPT's new image model, and we generated a design system there. And both of those design systems that we created, we fed into Claude Design to actually do all of the planning up front before we confirmed a design system. And that's meant that even with everything we've done so far, we've still, when we've created all of that, only hit 70% of my max limit, even though everyone online is saying they're using all of their limits immediately. If you're on the max 20x plan, you can get a serious amount done as long as you do the planning up front. And we also ended up with pages that did not look like AI slop at all. They looked very professional actually, and I was really pleased with the way that they turned out, and can actually go back and build on those. Like we said, this is a 90% version designed for you to then take away and actually improve that 10%, whether that's handing it off to Claude Code or handing it off to an actual designer or a developer, whatever you want to do. This gets us to a 90% version. We were then able to go and look at the command center that we built, the Kanban UI interface, and even create 3 variations of mock-up screens for various screens inside that app and how the user would interact with it. There were a few iterations we had to do back and forth, but we got there in the end, and we would be able to take this design and actually start building out an actual high fidelity prototype based on this as well. Finally, we talked about some tips in how to create more dynamic slides using your design style. So the most important tip was actually to create a video first and ask Claude Design to do that, and then rework it into a slide deck. And we ended up pretty happy with a slide deck that actually portrayed a subject topic and 7 levels of Claude Code, which was a repurposed video. So if you followed along, you have done actually a huge amount here, and congrats on getting this far. I'm just going to finish off on a few tips that we covered to reconsolidate your knowledge on them. So firstly, always build your design system first before anything else. So this is the most important tip that we shared throughout the course, because it means that actually you are able to extract those elements that look more human beforehand, upfront, give those to Claude, not use a ton of tokens, and still end up with something that you're actually proud to present. Number 2 was banning certain things like the inter prompt, no roboto prompts, no generic gradients, no teal in the design. And we helped to get to those decisions because we actually used the taste skill, which I'll link down below. And that had a bunch of stuff that's like generic AI, Claude front-end design skill vibes that we wanted to extract and never have in our designs. 3 was using inline comments for edits. So don't fully reprompt anything unless you want to change the whole thing. Like Claude Design is designed to make it really simple to just go on, click an element and actually comment and change those. But we saw the limitations today of it not being able to create custom graphics, something that we might have to go to something like Figma or a designer to actually create. And then finally, when you're creating a deck, if you want it to be a dynamic deck, whether it's a sales deck or a carousel, then actually start with a video first and then convert it to slides afterwards. And we saw some really cool features as we went through, like the fact Claude asks us loads of questions to gain more context for the brief, the fact we're able to use these tweaks, comment, edit, draw. All of these are really powerful use cases of Claude Design, and I can only see it getting better and more useful. And hopefully the token usage problem will start to reduce as they free up more resources to focus on things like Claude Design and it becomes more powerful. The one biggest limitation so far with Claude Design, one that we've worked around today, is the fact that it does not allow you to import your own custom skills. So we've had to do workarounds by using a bit of Claude Code, a bit of Claude Design in order to actually get a design that we're really happy with. So if you found this video valuable, then make sure to check out the Agentic Academy community link down in the description below. This is just one of our design courses amongst many other guided builds as part of our Agentic Masterclass. If you're looking to master agentic workflows and building with Claude Code, then you'll definitely love all the valuable resources we've got there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.